folks, welcome to the OKD Working Group meeting for July 18th of the year 2023. And let's take a few seconds to look over the agenda. Let us know if there's anything that we've missed, anything that needs to be added or moved around. So we'll take about 30 seconds to look it over. Anything that folks want to move around, change, add, delete? Generally happy with the agenda. All right, well then let's jump right into it. Let's start with the OKD release and CI/CD updates with, looks like we've got Luigi and yeah, Luigi, go ahead.
Yeah, cool. So really not much change from last week. I'm working with Christian to reorganize the OKD project core OS pipeline so that we can separate the tasks and pipelines into its sort of basically own repo so that we can submit the actual tasks and pipeline directly to the Tecton Hub. And then they can make use of, like, for example, the matrix task they can use as a separate almost task and plugin. And then, yeah, we'll be in a position to do a release at the end of the sprint, so it should be this week sometime, for 4.13 stable and 4.14 OKD SCOS, we call internally .next. So, yeah, that's about it.
Fantastic, thank you. Any questions or feedback on what Luigi was throwing down there? All right, let's move on then to the FCOS updates with Timothy.
Hey folks, is the sound okay? Yeah. Okay, great. So, well, I don't have much update. It's slow moving right now. We're starting to get into the summer, so there's not much happening besides the items from the last time, which are still relevant, I think. So Hyper-V support coming real soon. Firmware update metadata, we're pushing the change in Fedora right now, so this should land in Fedora 39, etc., and then in OKD. And the LVM devices found, that's the same thing. It's still in progress, so not much, not much update since then.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that update? Any questions in general about FCOS stuff while we have Timothy's here? The only thing I would say, Timothy, is you'll notice later in the agenda, we have a link to a merge request of a blog post for OKD building, like building OKD basically on FCOS and SCOS. And so if you could review that for accuracy, for anything related to FCOS that you think, needs to be fleshed out, or that you think would be beneficial for this blog post, please feel free to comment. We want any input and all input. All right, let's see, moving on now to SCOS stuff. And I don't know that we have anyone here to speak to that. Unless, Timothy, unless you have anything to provide in terms of SCOS stuff.
Yeah, I don't have any news on the SCOS side either.
Okay. All right. So then we will jump forward. By the way, I should mention that it was Christian, when I approached Christian about doing a video segment, and he mentioned that in fact he was going to be doing some internal demonstration and that he would record a video. He is the person who hooked us up with the person who wrote the blog post for us, and so that's very much appreciated. We appreciate Christian setting that up. All right, community development updates with Brian.
Okay, so so last week we had a review of the planning board. Not much had changed, so we had quite a few interesting discussions. We did discuss the upcoming video series in terms of how we want to organize it, how we want to structure it. I was trying to think, do we need to get with Timothy on any of that discussion? I think there was a discussion, should we split out things like the ignition file and generic pieces of Core OS from, say, the Fedora or the CentOS Streams Core OS? Would it be worth bringing out some of the sort of Core OS features like the ignition file to try and reduce them to like 15 minutes? So 15 minutes on the specifics of certain areas. We're capturing that in the ticket item. So we just need to sort of come to an agreement on that and then start getting those videos sort of created. So that was one of the discussions that we had around that video. We also had sort of a general discussion about getting started, and we do need to do some work on the website to actually create that getting started section. The front page, get that finished, that's down to me. I just need to find some time to get that going, to provide people with a faster or a simpler way to actually understand what is OKD and how they can get going with it. I now realize we need to take better notes in the HackMD rather than just going through the board when we want to do the board lookout, because we didn't actually capture anything in the meeting minutes last week. We also had a discussion around how we're going to sync up the operators. And one of the challenges is that with OCP, all of the release information is sort of behind the Red Hat firewall. So working out when they actually do a release, none of that's written to the GitHub repo. It's all within the build system within Red Hat. So there is going to be some challenges to try and keep OKD operators in line with the OCP operators, unless we get access to some of that internal metadata. So I think we'll do a conversation, Luigi, myself, and whoever else is needed, to actually see if there's a way around that. If not, we're not like another way of sort of trying to work out when do we do a cut of an operator on the OKD project. They can't be driven by the OCP side of the house. I think they were the main things that we discussed. What else did I miss, Jamie?
So we did also have volunteer for producing videos and blogs that are user-oriented, customer-oriented. And so that's very helpful as well, I think, is to round that stuff up, because a lot of our material in that area is old, I think, a couple of years old.
Yeah, like what I'm thinking is like a cookbook style thing, like deploy my Python or Quarkus app, my MySQL database, like the kind of thing customers, I believe, will try to do once they get their clusters up and running.
Other than that, I think that really covered it up for last week's discussions. I don't think we've got anything lined up for next week or next time, 2 weeks' time. But I'm aware that we're probably going to start getting a bit thin with holiday season.
Yeah,
So-
I think that for the video series, that's going to be our focus maybe next week, is starting to script out the video series. And then maybe if we could get Christian, I know you jumped on since we started the meeting. Are you able to were you able to record any video yet of the presentation, or did that get distilled into the blog post, or can you still commit to doing some video, or where do you stand on that? If you can respond. Timothy, go ahead. I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, while Christian find his mic. There's how much time should each section be? There's the title, but not how much time each part of the video should be.
So I think what we settled on is like, so ignition for 15, then FCOS specifically for 15. Does that sound about right for videos?
15 minutes?
Yeah, 15 minutes for, I mean, in 15 minutes, can you provide a good overview of ignition and how it factors into FCOS? Does that sound about right? Or do you think more or less?
Or? 50 minutes, maybe it's a little bit long, but I don't know. Okay, we can start with that.
No, I mean, whatever, you know, I think the goal was just to make sure it wasn't too long. If it's shorter, that's fine. I think the goal was just to make sure we don't have like 45 or hour-long videos, because we want these to be accessible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So I would say like 15 on ignition itself, and then 15 on like the concepts of Core OS and whatnot. And then that will then allow Christian or whomever to do the video about sort of the build part, and on top of Core OS. And that gives us sort of the layers right there, you know, of everything. And then we did have someone volunteer, actually, our sort of longtime community member, Brendan Shepard, it actually is working on a video for MCO anyway, and volunteered to share that with us. And so there was an exchange between Brendan and I earlier this morning, where he's like, I'm a little behind on my OKD community news, but I watched the latest meeting recording on YouTube and saw you're looking for a video on MCO. I actually have recorded one already and need to edit it. Were there any MCO specific topics you wanted covered though? And I just said, in short, we're looking for a video explaining how MCO factors into the overall installation process and configuration of an OKD cluster. The goal of the video series is to provide some foundational material for people who wish to contribute to OKD and or help provide community support. And he acknowledged that. So that's great. So we've got MCO covered now. And Brendan, I don't know if anyone's ever seen Brendan Shepard's videos, but they're really good. He has done stuff on a variety of topics that he just has a good flow, good presentation style. So I think we're starting to get everything covered that we need to get covered for this video series. I'm really excited about it. Is there anything else that folks want to mention about the video series or throw in to talk about in terms of the video series before next week's community development meeting?
Is there like an order? Maybe it would make sense to have FCOS first and ignition and butane after.
Yeah.
Or do we want to have each video like be standalone? completely?
I don't know. Brian, what do you think? We kind of talked about splitting them up, but I don't know how much we want to.
I think they do want to be sort of fairly standalone, but what we're trying to achieve is the collection of videos gives you the understanding of how that bootstrap works and how an OKD cluster goes from nothing to a running cluster. So this should help you understand the process, because then the plan is that Almiko is doing the troubleshooting essentials. So this is trying to give you the grounding. So when you get into troubleshooting, you understand what the main pieces are, what part they play in the process. And then as you start looking at the debugging information, you get an understanding of what each piece is doing in the process. So yes, they can be standalone, but together they should provide a sort of coherent body of knowledge.
I would say you could do butane separate, because to me, that's something that's a topic on its own that, you know, we can point people to when there's specific issues with butane stuff or a need for understanding, then we can just point them specifically at that video and they don't have to like navigate through other stuff. Does that feel about right, Timothy? Does that feel right to you?
Yeah, okay. As I understand it, it's more standalone with reference to others.
Yeah, for sure. Like you could say like there's other videos that cover this other aspect and stuff like that, for sure. Yep.
Yeah, I'll post a tentative summary of the content that we could have into each of those.
Excellent. And thank you for doing that. It's much appreciated. I think this is going to be really helpful. All right. Anything else on the video series stuff? Yeah, go ahead.
Jamie, yeah, I have a question. I was hoping to see Christian here for making the video on the agent-based installation. Currently, we need to land a little bit of work in the installer right now. I've made a PR that was a POC. I shared the link. And I had a chat with Christian. I understood he was about to open a new PR based on this work, essentially to embed the SCOS metadata into the installer and to activate the SCOS embedding into the machine OS images. With that stuff, we could have a working thing and doing the video. I think it could be a prerequisite for doing. I mean, I could do the video even right now using a workaround because we currently landed the fix. We're using an environment variable that you can set a base image override and make it work. But it's not the ideal thing or the how can I say the recommended approach. Maybe for making the video could be fine, but if we could land this work before, I think it would be better. So I didn't see anything new. So let me know if we can help somehow or.
I'd be inclined to wait, I think, because I mean, we've got time on that particular topic. And it seems to me that we probably don't want to educate people on a workaround and have that floating around. So I don't know, Brian, what do you think?
I totally agree. I think let's get it fixed and then make the video. And I think this one also unlocks the SNO, doesn't it?
Yes.
This is the
yes.
agent installer
Yes.
and lots of
yes.
So yeah, I think we do want to try and get this prioritized, because that then solves a number of issues around OKD. So, and then we can make the content around that, because I'm waiting on this for the SNO documentation as well.
So I think that's the answer. Yeah. And thank you for asking and thank you for doing that work. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else for, oh, we've got Christian. Christian is here. Hey.
I can hear you now. Awesome. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
I had to reboot my my laptop, and sorry for being late. Meeting before ran over a bit.
It's all good. So SCOS updates. What do you got for us in terms of SCOS?
So we have set up our infrastructure on the Massachusetts Open Cloud. We are running the builds there successfully. It's looking really good. We are going to cut another release this week, and for both the next and the stable stream. So it's all looking good at the moment. In terms of our pipeline, there's some changes coming. So right now we have everything in the OKD CoreOS pipeline repository, right? And I've created a new repo already, the Tecton catalog repo in the OKD project. And we're going to move all the task and pipeline definitions for both the CoreOS pipeline as well as the release pipeline over there. And then we'll just use the OKD CoreOS pipeline repository as our GitOps repository, essentially referencing the tasks and pipeline definitions from the other repo. And that way we can also make the Tecton catalog repo accessible to all other repositories, making it possible to reference the tasks and pipeline definitions in there, and to do things like the pipelines as code, which is another thing we'll add. Pipelines as code is something that the pipelines operator provides, and essentially it's having the definitions for your CI/CD pipelines in the repository that you're actually testing. So you have a .tecton directory in the root of your repo, and in there you're going to be able to put custom pipelines referencing the tasks from the other repo that we will maintain and version and also publish to Tecton Hub to make it, to distribute it. So really, in terms of changes, we'll have this new Tecton catalog where all the tasks and pipelines will live. And then we'll have one GitOps repo, which is the OKD CoreOS pipeline for managing our build farm through GitOps. And we have set up GitOps on the build farm we have now. It's not running in enforcing mode yet, so it's not actually applying the changes. But we are going to do that probably at the beginning of August when our SRE guy is back from PTO. In the meantime, we don't want to mess with the setup too much, but we've set it all up. It's running Argo in the background. Actually on yet another cluster. So we don't run Argo on the cluster on the build farm cluster. Later, we might change that up a little bit, but for now, we'll use the former operate first folks to help us with the setup, and they have infrastructure still in place to host Argo, so we're using that instance at the moment. So I'm very excited. There is also another PR, I'm just going to mention it, on the OKD CoreOS pipeline repository that introduces a split between the minimal SCOS base that does not include any OpenShift and OKD dependencies. And then we will use that as a common base for both the next and stable streams. We will just layer the 4.13 ones on top for stable and the 4.14 ones on top for the next stream. So on a shared base, since we currently do 2 composers a day, and 99% of the packages are the same. So the idea here is to use a common base, and actually that is something the CoreOS team is also interested in. So we are kind of pioneering that idea, and then we'll feed it back to the CoreOS team and see how they can use it. Ideally, in the end, we can really make the base a very, very minimal thing, and then have different kind of layers for different applications, a cluster use case, an IoT use case. So we're kind of exploring stuff we're going to productize in RHEL 10 times. So it's all very much in flux, but there's very interesting things and discussions happening in the background. And we're trying to surface that through SCOS first.
Excellent. Thank you, Christian. That's a lot. I'm glad you were able to connect and speak. Any questions, comments, feedback on what Christian was laying down? All right. Well, that was nice and succinct. Christian, we had a question for you, which is, so thank you for sending, first off, thank you for sending Jacob our way with the blog post. That's fantastic. Is this in lieu of a video, or will you still be able to do a video, or what are your thoughts?
So there's going to be a presentation I'm going to hold tomorrow internally, which I will do again and record, I guess, or I'll at least have slides that will, it'll be similar to the blog post. It'll kind of be a, this is what we have in terms of our Tecton pipelines. This is how we do it. And the internal discussion, this will be just to showcase what we do in OKD. There's other teams that do things differently, and we're really bringing together a lot of different viewpoints tomorrow. So that is going to be the OKD representation. So I'll still have that, by next week.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And it's going to be slides, definitely slides, and maybe a video.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments on that area? Videos, SCOS, anything?
Did we want?
I'm not sure you. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Brian.
Sorry, Christian, I was going to say, did you want to comment on the pull request around the agent installer to add SCO? I think there was a question for you when you were having difficulty joining.
Yeah, if you want to reiterate the question again. Go ahead. Yeah.
Andrea?
Yeah. So, Christian, I was asking, since I volunteered for making a video about agent-based installation on OKD, I was mentioning that we need first to land the missing work for embedding the metadata for SCOS into the installer, and then generating also the machine OS image. So wondering if there was anything related. The last time we discussed it, there was the intention to create a new PR, if I understood correctly.
Yes. So we still don't. So to give some context, the metadata required here, we only recently started generating, and we haven't had a release with that metadata created. So we are now generating that metadata on our daily builds. With the next release, we'll cut this week. We will have a set of metadata that is canonical, that is part of a release, and that we can then use in the install, because it's not going to be garbage collected and all. So that is coming soon. I have not forgotten about it, but we have to do our release first, and then I'll submit the new PR, and I'll once I do that, I'll close your PR and reference that as a follow-up.
Yeah.
I have not forgotten about it. Yes, that's the thing. Next release, and then ABI.
Cool. Thank you, Christian.
Excellent. And if folks could put in the comments of the video ticket any updates that they have over the coming weeks, that would be good. So just go ahead and comment on the link, and it's in the meeting notes, the ticket for the Foundations video series. All right. Is there anything else that folks want to cover at the meeting? We've gone through our agenda and we've covered a lot of territory in a short amount of time. Anything else? All right, it looks like we're good. Thanks so much for your time, folks. And community development meeting next week, we'll focus on sort of fleshing out the last few details of the video series and how to present that, I think, to the public. And, if there's anything you need, reach out to myself or Brian, and we'll make sure that go ahead, Christian.
I probably missed it. I just wanted an update on the operator building effort. Since we now have a build farm, you could deploy any kind of pipeline Tecton-wise on there to build the operators. And just again, an invitation, if you have something that's ready to be deployed and auto-triggered, let's say a weekly build or a daily build of an operator of your choice, we could deploy it on our build farm and have it, build automatically and managed through GitOps on our build farm. It's just we'll need it in the form of a Tecton pipeline. That's the only requirement.
Yeah, I mean, just from that, we haven't got that far yet. And we do need to sort of have a sit down conversation, probably you, myself, Luigi, and any other people from Red Hat. The issue is that how do we trigger operator builds? How do we, or do we need to stay in line with OCP? So version X of an operator on OCP matches version X, because none of that is tagged in Git repos. It's all done behind the Red Hat firewall. So we're not even sure if it's going to be possible for them to stay in line, in which case, how do we know what good commits are that we should be building operators on? So there's that front piece that until we actually know what we need to build, we can't really actually do any building. So that bit is yet to be resolved.
Okay, so my recommendation would be not to try that to get the same commit, because it's going to be hard to find. And really, there is different branches for those operators on the repo. And one of them is the development branch, and then you have release branches. And everything that goes into a release branch has gone through, and also the dev branch, even though there might be other things at play. On the release branches, the confidence we can have that things will work is pretty high. So my recommendation would be to just say, look, we're going to do a weekly or a daily build, let's say weekly build of the operator from the latest commit on that release branch. And that's going to be the one for stable, for the stable stream on SCOS, and the FCOS OKD stream as well. And then the other build, we can do another build from the master branch or the development branch, and that'll essentially, that'll relate to the next stream. So the development stream runs on top of the development stream of OKD, and the stable stream runs on the stable stream.
Okay, so you've just brought up a very interesting question there as well. Do we need a different set of operators for SCOS, FCOS, or can we have one? And if so, which underlying image do we use for the base of the operators?
So again, my recommendation would be to have two streams here. We essentially have two stable streams, right? We have the stable stream on top of FCOS and the one on top of SCOS. They are really the same cluster code. The only difference there is the operating system. We don't usually have any operating system specific things in the operator. So it really, the operator doesn't know and doesn't care in most of the times. That there may be some special operators like the CNV one that really uses specific kernel features where it matters. But let's say a standard operator doesn't really care. So my recommendation would be to have one stable stream and one next stream for operators as well, like we do with the SCOS one now. And my idea long-term is to also introduce a second FCOS stream to have the same thing, one next and one stable stream for both operating systems. Right now, the FCOS one we have is stable, right? It's not the next stream. Long-term, I'd really like to test everything and expand that matrix a little bit. Right now, we're really only focusing on SCOS, but once we have that in a very good place, we'll try to bring that same build process to the FCOS build as well. FCOS is a bit special because FCOS currently or already is a derivation build from FCOS, right? The OKD on FCOS just has a Docker file for building the operating system. And with the split in the image in SCOS that I mentioned earlier, we'll have something similar with SCOS. So we'll again work it out in SCOS, and then we'll try to bring that over to FCOS too. but yeah, my recommendation would be to just have two streams, one built from the stable branch, one built from the development branch, and everything there should already have a good amount of testing, and then obviously we can see, and that's another thing we have on the backlog. There's the OC, I always mess it up. There's a tool for running self-certification for OpenShift clusters, which is essentially a tool that allows you to run an end-to-end test and all the tests yourself on any cluster, and we can use that in Tekton. And Luigi has already done some work to get that working with Tekton. We'll be able to use that to run end-to-end tests ourselves eventually for anything we want. And obviously, if there's an operator we think this needs this additional testing, we want to do an end-to-end test ourselves, we'll be able to do that. We're not quite there yet, but it's not too far out, I think.
Excellent. Okay.
That
And
sounds
then,
like-
sorry, just one last question. Is there anything that we need to consider when designing the pipelines for multi-arc? Is it multi-arc coming to OKD, or is that a way off yet?
It's not too far out. So I talked to and now I forgot his name. I talked to an AWS employee at DEF CONF in Brno recently, and he promised me some ARM worker nodes that we haven't had time to look into that, but we'll onboard those worker nodes as remote workers to our build farm, and when that happens, we'll be able to do multi-arch builds. Alessandro is currently on PTO, but once he's back, I hope we can drive that forward again. So that is definitely a thing we very, very much want to get done. And so yes, to answer your question, keep multi-arch in mind. Like it's not going to be built multi-arch off the bat, but soonish we'll have it. So keep it in mind, and if we see anything obvious that won't work, we'll probably add it to it, or make sure it just would work theoretically.
Yeah, thank you. So that's it,
So
Jamie.
Brian, it sounds like what we want to do then is maybe dedicate maybe half of the next community meeting to actually fleshing out where we want to start with this and get something going.
Yeah, because what I'm trying to do is work out the end-to-end for an operator. What's the end-to-end sort of pipeline need to look like? And then we can start implementing the individual tasks.
Yeah, excellent. We did get a question on a different topic. Neil's mic isn't working, but I want to flesh this out for people that might watch the video that might be interested in. This one's for Timothy or whomever. Since apparently things crash whenever I try to use my mic, I'm going to ask this in chat. Can we switch to run and cgroups v2 for OKD on both SCOS and FCOS? Timothy and Christian?
So yeah, I think, but yeah, it's crun, it's
right.
v2. It's in 4.13. I think it's available, but not enabled by default. And I don't know the plans for 4.14.
Yeah, I think it's a you can do a config to switch over for it.
Yeah, I think on FCOS, the situation we currently have is that new installs will have cgroups v2, but older clusters that have been carried forward will stick on cgroups v1. They're not going to be auto-migrated, even though I think you can trigger that migration, or you can do that migration manually. I think that's also one of the reasons a couple of folks have hit problems. At least there's a lot of chatter on our issue tracker regarding that cgroups v2 thing. So I do think it'd be nice to align, although I wouldn't want to switch over OKD 4.13 to cgroups v2 on SCOS if the RCOS one it doesn't do it. So I think for SCOS we'll do it when OCP does it, which is I think it's going to be in 4.14, even though it might still be, yeah, it's either 4.14 or 4.15. I hope it's 4.14 personally, but I'm maybe Timothy has found out when that default, the switch of defaults is going to happen. And for FCOS, we are already defaulting to cgroups v2 for new installs.
Yeah, and Timothy linked to a blog post on that. Yeah, go ahead, Timothy.
Yeah. I linked. I should paste that into the notes. You're right. It's really easy to enable. You can enable day 0 on a setup, so there's no. Sure, it's not default, but it's not like it gets the complex things to do. So.
But does it sound like then we need someone to write a very quick blog post to actually say how to enable it?
Yeah, we talked about doing this before, but we didn't actually go through with doing it. Yeah, it would be good to get some, because we get questions all the time about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm guessing anybody that wants a more stable, they may want to stay with what's known. But as Neil said, the more people that we can actually get using this new feature, the more information we have, which we can then feed back. So I think it would be good if we have something really clear, because out of the bat, I wouldn't know how to turn it on. I'd have to go and do a lot of digging to find out how to turn it on. So there, we got a link there. So if we want people to do it, maybe leave it in 4.13 as it is, but try and promote the use of this switch to get new installs to use it, or to get skunk clusters to use it.
So apparently from the OKD documentation, we're already using cgroups v2 in OKD.
Oh yeah, for new installs, we definitely do it. It's just that the SCOS installer doesn't do that. So it's only FCOS, at least as far as I know. And I'm not sure what the default in all of OpenShift is going to be in Fallout 14. So we don't want to diverge, I think, but it's possible to relatively easily switch that even during install. It's just one kernel argument that you have to change essentially. So really, if the OCP PMs want data, they should set up clusters with cgroups v2. They can do that with OKD or with OCP. I don't really see why we should change the default for everybody to something that might. I mean, I'm pretty sure cgroups v2 is good enough already, and we do it in FCOS, but in SCOS we are really strictly aligning with the product. That's just, it wouldn't make sense to diverge here, I think.
Okay, any other questions on that topic? Cool. All right, I think we're at the end. Feel free to reach out. Folks have any questions or comments, and community development meeting next week, we'll focus on the video series and working out the last few details of, oh, Christian, do you have something else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just very quickly for Neil. Neil, would you, I think this is important. So would you mind creating an issue on the OKD board in Jira so we can include that in our refinement and work on it internally? That would be awesome.
Cool.
Well, you should be able to create stuff. But anyways, Neil, I'll follow up with Neil.
Yeah, there we go. All right, thanks folks so much, and we will focus on video and operator stuff at the next meeting, at the next working community development meeting, and thank you for your time. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thanks guys, bye.
Thank you, bye.